So, it started with a whisper, like most of Trump's chaos does. Not a press release, not a policy memo. Just a quiet, untraceable rumor bouncing around Capitol Hill, gaining volume every hour. By the end of the week, it was all anyone in Washington could talk about. Trump wasn't happy with J.D. Vance, and he was thinking of replacing him with Sylvester Stallone. Yes, that Stallone. It would have been laughable if it weren't so. Trump. Because in 2025, nothing is off the table, especially not now. With the economy tanking, allies walking on eggshells, and markets swinging wildly with every presidential tweet. It wasn't just that Trump was back. It was that this version of him, second-term Trump, unchained and fueled by grievance, was more unpredictable than ever. And in the middle of it all, Vance had vanished. No appearances, no speeches. No, we've got this interviews on Fox. He was nowhere to be seen while the president teased major changes coming to the team. Not cabinet-level changes. No, bigger. The kind of changes that would shake the world, Trump said during a rally in Ohio, ironically, Vance's home state. The crowd laughed. Trump didn't. He grinned, then said the line that kicked the firestorm into overdrive. We need warriors in this fight. Warriors like Rambo. I don't care if they're politicians. I care if they win. You know who wins? Fighters. Real fighters. Maybe even the most famous fighter of them all from Philly. The arena erupted. They knew exactly who he meant. That night, Trump Stallone 2028 trended on every social media platform. There was no clarification from the White House, no denial. Just one photo posted to Trump's Truth Social account. Him and Stallone, arm in arm, from a charity boxing event 6 years earlier. The caption? One word. Maybe. By morning, the entire Republican apparatus was in panic mode. It wasn't just the ridiculousness of it. It was the possibility. Because by now, they all understood the Trump doctrine. If it causes chaos, it's worth considering. If it dominates headlines, it's already halfway real. And in the background, the country was unraveling. The Dow had dropped another 1,000 points by the time the press caught wind of internal White House arguments. Multiple sources confirmed what they'd feared. Trump was seriously floating Stallone as a replacement for Vance, not just as a showman move, but as a full-on pivot, a way to reset, to distract from what was happening outside. Because what was happening outside wasn't pretty. Trump's aggressive tariff war had triggered retaliations from half the world. Gas prices had soared. Foreign investors were pulling money. A dozen economists went on record, warning that a global recession was imminent. But the only thing anyone wanted to talk about was the photo of Stallone walking out of the West Wing, wearing dark aviators and saying nothing. Not a word. Just that tight, familiar, crooked smile. By the next morning, the speculation was everywhere. Late-night hosts had a field day. Kimmel joked, Trump's economic plan is to KO inflation by body-slamming it into submission. Colbert quipped, at least Stallone knows how to read a script. That's more than we can say for most of this administration. But what started as a punchline quickly shifted, because Stallone didn't deny it. In fact, he leaned into it. When reporters caught up to him outside a gym in Santa Monica, he simply said, "Hey, look, I love this country. If there's a way to serve, you never say never." And that was all it took. Trump's base, already skeptical of polished politicians, ate it up. MAGA forums exploded with photoshopped campaign posters. Stalin 2028. Make America fight again. A dozen influencers made hour-long YouTube breakdowns on why Stallone would energize the forgotten man. Trump watched it all from Mar-a-Lago, smiling. Insiders said he was obsessed with the reaction, the speculation, the headlines, the sense of control. One aide described it this way: "He's not picking a vice president. He's casting a movie. And right now, Sly's testing through the roof." And what about J.D. Vance? Still silent. The man who once wrote that Trump was cultural heroin had become a background extra in his own administration, and he knew it. Reporters noted that he'd quietly canceled a round of interviews. Rumors swirled that he'd requested a private meeting with Trump. Denied. One source claimed he'd even offered to step aside if it would help the country. But Trump doesn't respond to humility. He responds to loyalty, or to spectacle. And Stallone? He was pure spectacle. He represented everything Trump missed about his first presidency. The crowds, the catchphrases, the television moment. If Vance was the quiet thinker, Stallone was the storm. And right now, Trump needed a storm. Because beneath the noise, there were cracks. Multiple GOP governors had begun distancing themselves from his economic plan. Foreign leaders were reportedly refusing to take his calls. The Canadian Prime Minister called the new tariffs economic warfare. China had already slapped a 30% import tax on U.S. soy, and the Fed, quietly panicking. But none of it seemed to register. Trump doubled down. He posted on Truth Social, "America needs real fighters, not whiners, not consultants, fighters. Watch what's coming next." And 2 hours later, at a veterans rally in Pennsylvania, a surprise guest took the stage. It wasn't Vance. It was Sylvester Stallone. The crowd went berserk. They didn't care about the Constitution. They didn't care that Stallone had never held office. They cared that he looked the part, sounded the part, felt like strength. He didn't give a policy speech. He gave a war cry. "This country gave me everything. I've seen what it means to fight. I've seen what it means to lose, and I know what it takes to get back up. If President Trump asks me to step in, to help this country fight again, how do you say no to that?" And just like that, the stage was set. The next morning, Vance finally spoke. A tightly written statement posted to X. "I serve at the pleasure of the President. My loyalty is to the Constitution and to the people of this country. I will always fight for Ohio and for America, whether that's in the White House or not." It was respectful, measured, and completely beside the point. Because this wasn't about politics anymore. This was about control. Trump had already won, not because he made a decision, but because he made everyone wait for one. He floated a fantasy, then watched as the world bent around it. And behind the scenes, staffers confirmed the rumors. Trump was considering making it official. He didn't need to. Vance hadn't resigned. The Constitution didn't require a formal VP swap unless Vance was removed or vacated the office. But Trump didn't care. He wanted the drama. The rumors grew louder. Stallone would take a special advisory role first, then transition into a co-branded position, National Fighter for Economic Recovery. Yes, that was the working title. No, they weren't joking. White House communications teams were told to prep 2 sets of materials, one with Vance as VP, one with Stallone. Trump, they were told, hadn't made up his mind. But he liked keeping people guessing. That's where his power was. It was chaos. It was reckless. And it worked. Markets tanked, then spiked, then tanked again. Cable news couldn't look away. And Trump? He was right where he wanted to be, controlling the show. Even Stallone's Hollywood friends were caught off guard. Some called it embarrassing. Others whispered he might actually take it. One insider said, "Sly's not dumb. He sees the moment. He knows what this could do. For his brand, for his legacy. But for the country?" That was the question no one could answer. Because deep down, everyone knew this wasn't really about Stallone. It wasn't even about Vance. It was about a president who thrives on spectacle, who understands that in a broken world, distraction is power, and that sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't the chaos you create, it's the calm you ignore. And while the world braced for recession, while families wondered how they'd pay for gas, or groceries, or rent, the biggest conversation in America was whether Sylvester Stallone might be the next vice president. That was the state of things. And late that night, when the country had spun itself dizzy with rumor and rage, Trump posted once more. A video. No words. Just a slow-motion clip of Stallone, shirtless, gloves on, standing in the ring from Rocky IV. And at the bottom of the screen, one phrase burned into frame. The fight is just beginning. This is the irony. And that's the irony. So, disclaimer. This video is a work of satire and fiction. It is intended for entertainment purposes only and should not be interpreted as fact, news, or a representation of real events. Any similarities to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events, is purely coincidental.